Okay guys, so in this video I'm going to be doing a video with Mark here, a fellow YouTuber in the investing space, and he recently made a video about how to retire on Tesla stock by 2030. So I thought it'd be a great opportunity to get Mark on and basically discuss his opinions on that and if it is actually possible to retire on Tesla stock in 2030. So yeah, Mark, thanks for joining. Really appreciate you coming on to do this discussion. We were just talking before we started recording here, and I was talking about basically seeing Chicken Genius Supreme made a video quite similar to this, talking about his opinions on how to retire on Tesla stock. So it was great to see Mark do the topic as well, and I always love seeing people's different opinions on this. So Mark, maybe if you want to just jump into kind of what was covered off in that video, maybe a bit of background about yourself, if you want to do that as well.
So the video that I made was how to retire off of Tesla in 2030. It's basically a thought experiment to see how many shares would it take in theory. And the way that I tried to come to a couple of approximations using a couple different models was, first of all, to figure out how much money we would need to retire. And then with that, if we work out a couple of different valuation models for what Tesla could be worth in 2030, and then apply a sort of perpetual growth rate from that point onward, we can figure out how many shares it might actually take. And so the number in terms of how much cash I think it might take to retire was based off of the average household living expenses data in the US, which is currently around $5,000 per month. And then of course you have to account for inflation between today and 2030, and then also from 2030 onward as you're living in retirement. And the number that I arrived at was around 1.1 million. However, some of the assumptions that I had to make in that model might be overtaken by events because, of course, we've seen that inflation has been steadily ticking up, and so that might affect the model in the short term. And so, if you incorporated an additional margin of error, it might just make it safer. But anyways, theoretically speaking, if you have $1.1 million invested in Tesla by 2030, you might be able to retire if you assume that a perpetual growth rate of around 6 to 8% per year would continue from that point forward.
And that's with drawing down about 4% per year, is that right?
So I didn't use the 4% model. I've seen that model, and that's definitely a different approach. I think the actual total number you would require off of the 4% model would be slightly higher. Okay. This was basically just taking the current average household spend in the US and then accounting for inflation, and then assuming that we'd be drawing down by that amount, not a specific percentage of the total amount invested, right? And so by 2030...
I think that figure you arrived at as well, that $5,000 per month, I think that's probably pretty in line with what you would need the kind of standard of living in Ireland as well, kind of what you need. So a lot of my viewers are from Ireland, they're Irish, so I think that would be... This model, I guess, could be a good estimate of what they need to do as well to retire off Tesla stock. But yeah, continue.
Yeah, for sure. But I live in Canada. I'm actually not based in the US, but I think if you can afford to retire in the US, you could probably afford to retire in most countries around the world, right? So I think it's a suitable baseline anyways. And then, yeah, there's 4 different valuation models that I used, okay? And I didn't come up with these myself. These are valuation models that I'm pulling from, really established investors in the space. So for example, ARK Invest and Kathy Wood have a price target for Tesla by 2025. And so I relied on that valuation model to try and figure out what Tesla could be worth in 2030. And then there's a couple other ones, for example, Chicken Genius Singapore, and then another investor named Frank Peelin, who I used for the Super Bowl model, which is the high end of the spectrum. And if we're going to talk about the number of shares that it might take based on the different models, and I don't know if you want to throw the spreadsheet that I made up on screen for the viewers when you're editing this, but at the bare end, it could be maybe 800, 900 shares, and then at the Super Bowl end, could be potentially as low as 86 shares.
Mm-hmm. And important to note out as well that this is within the next, I suppose, 8 years from now. So a lot of people watching this video are probably not planning on retiring in the next 8 years or so. But as you said, it's a thought experiment. So don't let these numbers kind of discourage you. But it's just, if you were to only invest in Tesla and you wanted to use that as your retirement, then this is kind of what you'd need to be aiming for in these 4 cases here, as Mark has clearly outlined in his Excel, which I think is really great and really helpful. But yeah, it's mainly like a thought experiment just to get you guys thinking of how kind of possible, I guess, it would to would to be retiring off Tesla stock. But just on them, Mark, I guess, so I know you have them lined out between bear, base, bull and super bull, but where would you kind of see the realistic, I know you could probably say off your base, but you personally, where do you see the kind of realistic kind of mark for Tesla in 2030, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's tough to say. I don't like making prediction because more often than not, it'll end up wrong and then I'll look like an idiot. But I think that it's probably going to be somewhere in the middle of those 4 different scenarios that I laid out.
Yeah.
I would be shocked if the bear case came to be, which for the viewers was just 7% per year growth between now and 2030, which obviously is incredibly bearish for a company that's growing year over year revenues by like 70+%.
Like 50% or even more, yeah, it's crazy. So that I think I'd be somewhere around there. I have thrown around some of my own predictions, and of course, as you say, when you do throw them out, you run the risk of being very, very wrong. But I do think my personal 2025 kind of more bullish kind of estimate would be around the $5,000 mark for Tesla. So we'll see if that comes true or not, and that may affect how many shares we need for when it comes to retiring. But yeah, no, that's really, really interesting. And just based on that video, so it's been up for I think a week or two now at this stage, has there been any kind of main comments that are kind of good feedback? I guess there's always going to be some crazy comments that aren't much value, they're just argumentative, but based on that video, was there any kind of things that you read and said, oh, that's something I didn't consider, or anything like that changed your mind a bit on your video?
I wouldn't say that changed my mind, but it's funny because there's basically 2 types of comments. There's people telling me that, you know, I am batshit insane and that Tesla's going to zero, that it's incredibly overvalued, and, you know, if you put your money into it, you're basically lighting it on fire. But then on the other hand, I actually had a surprising number of people tell me that my models weren't actually bullish enough, even the super bull model, you know, and I guess that was surprising to me because I thought that I was being pretty generous even at the top end. But I guess there are some people in the Tesla investing community that really do believe this company is going to the moon.
Yes, great turn of phrase there. And I probably would fall into one of them brackets, but it's nice to have, I suppose, people on either side. But I do find with Tesla it's very polarizing. There's not too many people that are in Tesla stock thinking this will have, as you said, like a 7% steady growth. It's either this company is going to do absolutely amazing and destroy all of these estimates that people are throwing out there, or this company is going to zero. I don't see where people are getting the company going to zero from myself, but I suppose it's always good to get different perspectives on that. So based on this, I know you've done a few different kind of videos, and like I've seen those one, how to retire on Palantir stock, or how much you would need to retire on Palantir stock, and that. And you said Tesla makes up a small percentage of your portfolio. Could you maybe kind of give us what your maybe top 3 stocks are going forward? And of course, this is not financial advice by any means, just your own kind of personal opinion. Is Tesla one of them that maybe you would think will help towards your retirement yourself?
It could do, yeah, for sure. I guess I would say the 3 individual stocks or investments that I'm pretty bullish on would be Palantir, Tesla, and Ethereum. But I should probably also clarify that the vast majority of my net worth is in basically, you know, blue chip ETFs tracking the overall market, and also some real estate. And the fun thing about models like this is it helps us to visualize, you know, what might happen. You know, if I bought 50 Tesla shares, what would that mean by 2030? But when it comes to actually retiring, I think actually a smarter approach probably would be to transfer some of these assets at the point of retirement away from, you know, single equity investments in potentially risky companies. Not to say necessarily that Tesla is risky, but to transfer those investments over to sort of a broad market index at the point of retirement, because we know there's probably going to be some more explosive growth for Tesla, for Palantir, for other companies between today and when we want to retire. And so, you know, that's the interesting part of these models, is what is going to happen in the next 8 to 10 years, right? But after that point, if we're seriously talking about retiring, then definitely the smart strategy would be to transfer, you know, a pretty significant percentage of that over to something that has a more steady and stable return on investment over time. Because post retirement date, really what we're looking for is just, you know, 6 to 8% per year, you know, inflation adjusted ROI. Like that's the goal.
Yeah, at that stage it gets more to the wealth preservation, I suppose, doesn't it? Then kind of the wealth creation, which is kind of what the investing in Tesla stock is more. But that definitely seems like a solid strategy to moving into more kind of risk off investments once you do reach that towards that retirement age. Whenever that may be for people, of course, a lot of people have different opinions, and with the whole crypto kind of over the last year, I think a lot of people are planning on retiring a lot sooner than is generally thought is possible. But yeah, no, I think Tesla is definitely one that I'll hopefully, I'm 25 at the minute, so I don't plan on retiring just yet, but hopefully Tesla is one that will help me kind of do well later in life, maybe in terms of investment properties as well and things like that. So it's something I plan to hold for the next, I don't know, 5-10 years at least, I would say, and hopefully it does work out well. But I do realize that I have quite a large percentage in it, and it's not the most best strategy to when you're just not diversified at all really into one certain stock. But it's just one that I believe in, and I know it's not as much as percentage of your portfolio, but you obviously have some kind of vision for the company as well there with your kind of base case there even, and the fact that you've invested in the company as well, you obviously see it as a decent investment for yourself. So yeah, I think it is one that I'm a big fan of here. So hopefully it does come true, and hopefully we can be looking at retiring after not too long with Tesla stock.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, is there anything else you want to cover off just based on your model or anything regarding the retiring around Tesla?
Well, so I'm kind of curious because you said you had 95% of your portfolio in Tesla, right?
Yeah.
And are you planning on maintaining that sort of percentage allocation of your investments for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I've been buying Tesla for probably a year and a half, nearly 2 years, and obviously it started out just small amounts, and then you kind of build up and you grow your conviction in it. And I took the opportunities where things were kind of on a downturn, and I had some kind of unrealized losses in some stocks that I just didn't have that much conviction in. I took them chances to double down on Tesla a bit more. So I think just the fact that the stock has been like a roller coaster recently in terms of it had big dips, I just took advantage of that, and then before I know it, I was sitting at 95% in Tesla. But to answer your question going forward, I think most of my kind of heavy buying is done for the minute. I have on the trading app that I use like these things called like pies essentially. I think M1 Finance has something similar, like your own little basket of ETFs nearly. So in one of the pies, which I was mainly invested in, I had Tesla at that 90%, 95%. But then in my pie that I'm putting money into on a go forward basis, that's currently at 20%. So I'm definitely reducing my kind of just buying all Tesla, and I'm spreading that out across a couple of other individual stocks. I definitely like the idea of the S&P 500. I think for a lot of people it's just the right idea, something like that, an ETF that's quite safe and has a large number of stocks in it, and it's something that you don't need to do too much research into. You can kind of set it, forget it, and just keep buying. But for me, a bit of time in my hands, I like making these videos, and if I just said constantly invest in the S&P 500, it probably wouldn't get as much traction. So I like kind of looking at different stocks and that. But to answer your question, going forward, not as much as a percentage, and I'll try to bring that weighting down a bit, but I don't plan on selling my position anytime soon, but I'll still continually add a small bit.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
Well, I mean, I hope it works out for you. It's like they say, you know, if you want to acquire wealth, you have to be concentrated, and then if you want to keep your wealth, you have to be diversified.
That's diversification, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, hopefully if things did go too far wrong, I definitely don't see Tesla going to zero, but I do think just with the age of my side and like don't have any big debts hanging over me, I think I would be able to recover from that if it didn't work out as well. But yeah, hopefully I don't need to worry about that at all. But yeah, no, that's been really interesting, Mark, and I love the work you're doing on your channel there. If you guys haven't heard of Mark before, go check him out. He does all these kind of videos around different kind of thought, I think what you call them, thought scenarios, or was it thought experiments? Thought experiments, yeah, the thought experiment guy when it comes to investing. But yeah, lots of different stocks he covers off and what you would need in them stocks in order to retire. And I like how you have that realistic lens, and you're not like some of these videos that just say become a millionaire in Tesla in the next year or something like that. Recently I just did a video actually on can you become a millionaire in crypto this year, or can you retire on crypto this year, and I just took it at that realistic lens of you have to take into account the market caps of Bitcoin. A lot of people that invest in the likes of Bitcoin, for example, they just think I'll put my money in and it could just 10x in the morning or something. But when you actually realize how much more money needs to come into that cryptocurrency based on its market cap, it kind of sets people's expectations a little bit more, because when you lay it out like this, saying how many shares you need in order to achieve it, it just kind of breaks things down, as you said. So yeah, no, I think that's been really interesting, Mark. hopefully the viewers enjoyed this discussion here, and I'm sure they'll be over to your channel with lots more questions on how they can retire on Tesla and all different kinds of stocks. So yeah, we'll leave it there. If you have any closing message or anything.
No, that's it. But it's been great chatting with you today, and hopefully we'll do this again sometime soon.
Yep, sounds great. Okay, thanks a million, Mark. Really appreciate it. So that was Mark there. As I said, if you guys could take a second to go ahead and check out his channel, let him know I sent you, and check out some of his recent videos on how you can retire on particular stocks. I would definitely recommend it. But yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts on what Mark has come up here with this video on how to retire on Tesla stock. Let me know in the comment section below which of those 4 cases you see as most likely to happen, and maybe even give your price prediction for Tesla stock in this comment section below as well. If you guys enjoyed that, please take a second to drop a like on this video if you want to see more things like this, and please consider subscribing to the channel as well. Thanks for watching, guys, and catch you in another video.